Hello and welcome to Filling the Sink, a podcast from Catalan News. My name is Lea Beliaeva, and today we're talking about rock climbing in Catalonia. Indoor climbing gyms in Catalonia have multiplied by 4 in just 10 years and turned climbing into a true lifestyle phenomena as well as another way of connecting with people. At the same time, the beautiful mountainous landscape of Catalonia has become one of the most visited destinations for outdoor climbing and has attracted both world-renowned climbers and small-scale professionals alike. On today's podcast, we will be looking into why climbing has become so popular and hear from different climbers about what the sport means to them. We will also hear from an expert about what the increase in popularity has meant for some Catalan mountain towns. I am once again joined by Oriol Escudé.
Hello, Lea.
Hi, Oriol. Great to see you again.
It's great to be here. I'm very excited.
I can feel your excitement, actually. So let me start by asking you, are you a rock climber yourself?
No, I'm far from being able to consider myself a climbing, but I did some climbing over the past few years. I'm the perfect example of this boom of climbing that we're going to talk about, because I did climb in indoor gyms, but I've never stepped foot on real rock.
And how did you get into it?
Well, I think like many people, a friend was doing it and we thought that was very cool and it seemed fun. That's the main thing, and we'll talk about this later, but everyone says that it's fun while you do physical activities. I hated going to the gym. I do some running occasionally, but it felt like it was a bit boring as well. So you're just doing physical activity for the sake of being fit, but you don't actually have fun. And it felt like climbing was the perfect combination between being fit and having fun.
Okay, that sounds very interesting. So I understand that there's rock climbing and then there's bouldering. But for us non-nerds, what is the difference between the two?
So climbing is an incredibly varied activity. There's a very different and sometimes overlapping disciplines that fall under the same umbrella of climbing, but they are completely different. The one I do, and most people do in cities, is bouldering, and it's what we're going to talk about today. The other one, outdoors, would be sport climbing, and we'll talk about this later. Let's talk about bouldering.
Yes, and so bouldering, I understand that you don't use any ropes, you don't use a lot of equipment, right?
Exactly. Some people even consider it the purest form of climbing because it focuses on the athletic motion of climbing and there's no equipment. But at the same time, is the most accessible form of climbing precisely because you don't need equipment. You just need some climbing shoes, a bit of chalk, and
you're ready to go.
Yeah, exactly. And also it's relatively safe because walls tend to be about 4 or 5 meters high and there's a mat that protects you from falling, so you can fall as many times as you want. And it's relatively safe.
All right, well, that sounds pretty interesting. I look forward to learning a lot more.
It's still scary, but it's safe.
Still scary,
it's safer
but
than
safe.
It feels. Yeah.
Okay, great. So, Oriol, is it possible and safe to boulder outside?
Yeah, definitely. It's actually a thing. It's the same in gyms. So gyms basically emulate outdoor bouldering. You just need a rock, a crash pad, and that's it. You just hop on and try to do it. It's a bit more dangerous, I'd say, than a gym, definitely.
And there has been a bouldering boom in the Catalan cities, right?
Yeah, exactly, because, gyms have proliferated, and 5 years ago, there weren't as many gyms as there are now. They were very old, and they weren't great. And also we have good weather here in Catalonia, so people tend to do activities outdoors and going inside a gym when we have this great weather, it feels somewhat
strange.
Yeah. But then this progressed and gyms became better and new gyms opened. And now lots of people are bouldering or climbing indoors. And it feels a bit like going into the mountain, but in the city. It has this connection with the nature. You're not climbing actual rock, but it does feel like you are. And it's also very accessible. It has so many great things. And that's why many people is falling in love with it.
Okay, and I also understand that one of the newest climbing gyms that has opened here in Catalonia, it's Sharma Climbing in Gavà. And that climbing gym was started and is owned by famed American climber Chris Sharma. And it opened 3 years ago. And it's the biggest climbing gym, not only in Catalonia, but also actually in Spain. And you went there, Oriol, and then you checked it out. So can you tell me, what was the experience like? So when you go into a climbing gym, what is the first thing that you see? And what was the thing that you saw there?
Well, I've been to many climbing gyms, but never to one like this one. It was mind-blowing, and Sharma's not paying us to say this, but it was really, really huge. I mean, it's the largest in Spain. Walls go up to 20 or 23 meters,
Wow.
which was crazy. There are like 3 bouldering areas, 20 auto belays. It's just huge, and I loved it. I haven't had a chance to try it yet because I was working, didn't want to get injured. But I will, I definitely will. And the people were very nice as well.
Yes, and you actually talked to some of the climbers there. So let's hear why they took up the sport.
Half an hour by train from Barcelona, in the coastal town of Gavà, Chris Sharma recently opened the largest climbing gym in Spain. We went there to find out why gyms like this are so successful today and what it is about climbing that makes so many people fall in love with it.
M'agrada perquè fas esport però alhora jugant.
I like it because you're working out and playing at the same time. It's not like going to the gym and lifting weights, which I find very boring. Instead, here you feel like you're doing both things at once, a fun hobby and getting stronger at the same time. And the atmosphere's great.
Recently, there has been an amazing boom in climbing. It is a sport that was previously considered dangerous, and now people realize that it's not. It can be a normal sport, one that families and children can enjoy together.
Although climbing always involves a certain amount of risk, it is perfectly safe for children with proper supervision. And for many, it has become the perfect family activity.
We went first we have 2 kids, so it was something to do with the kids. We went canyoning, or barranquismo, no? And then we said, there's a climbing gym close to our house, let's go try that out. And I think very quickly we became very addicted to it. And I think the biggest thing is I love the physical problem solving. So it's both, it keeps you fit and healthy, but also they change the walls, every route's different. So, you can fully focus, disconnect, as opposed to going to the gym, which is a bit repetitive, a bit boring.
And it unites not only parents and children, but couples too.
And the other thing we really like is that it's a shared passion. If we go to the gym together, we don't do the same things. I go do weights, she goes for running, something like that. But this is something we can do together. We climb similar levels, so it's nice to have a shared passion after almost 20 years together.
For the fitness aspect, the problem solving, it's a super sociable sport. So we have lots of friends that climb as well. And climbers in general are just really nice people.
Climbers tend to be a really friendly bunch, and since they share wall space in the gym, there are plenty of opportunities to chat and make new friends.
It's very fun and it's social. It was like a hidden gem.
It's definitely a very social. That's another thing, because literally you need to trust the person who's belaying you, and he needs to know what you're going to do. Definitely trust. Yes, definitely. So, and social activity, yes, of course. Yeah, sometimes I go just to be with the friends.
Training, socializing, and really focusing on not falling also has many mental health benefits.
When you are on the wall, you just to be focused on your movement and try to avoid falling out, falling down. So that's maybe a way of release my loop thoughts.
I've started in Chile. I'm Chilean, and I love it because it has this connection with the mountain. So it brings this connection with the earth, with moving your hands, moving your physical body, but it also makes you work your mind. Like, it's kind of meditation movement.
Thanks to all the climbers for speaking with us. I think it's fascinating to hear the climbers' stories and hear why they got into climbing in the first place. And they do have some similarities in their stories. And Oriol, can you tell me a little bit more about who is the typical climber? I must admit that I might be a little bit prejudiced when I think about climbers, because I think strong, muscular, fit men in their 20s and in their 30s. Would that fit the profile, Oriol?
Well, there's little data about this, but it'd be great to have data on gender distribution. At least I'd say, in my opinion, in the gyms I've been in the UK for 3 or 4 years, say gender distribution is 50-50. But I've noticed that here in Catalonia it's a bit more 60-40, maybe. And also women are among the best climbers in the world as well. And there's more women in the top 100 climbers than in any other sport.
Oh, okay.
And women can climb as hard as men. Actually, unlike more traditional sports, which usually advantage men, climbing is a relatively level playing field. It has been well documented as well that women are on average more flexible than men. So in some routes or levels,
it's an advantage to be a woman.
Absolutely.
All right, well, that's nice to hear. And tell me a little bit about the accessibility in terms of money. Does it cost a lot of money to climb? And you said before that you only need some chalk and some shoes. So that sounds really cheap, but is it?
Well, yeah, it is relatively cheap compared to other sports. If you look at access to fitness facilities, climbing gyms are about 45 to 60 euros per month. Daily passes are available from 9 euros, usually in the mornings, to 14 euros. Depends all on the gym. And yeah, shoes are a bit expensive. They range from 50 euro to 150. Alternatively, you can rent them at your gym for 3 euros a session.
Oh, okay. Well, renting, that sounds great too. So in the beginning, you said that you were the typical profile of a climber, someone who does it indoors and has never actually touched a rock. Well, for climbing purposes anyways. And tell me a little bit more about this typical profile.
So looking at data from the Catalan Mountain Federation, it seems like everyone does like me. They just climb indoors and they don't go to the mountain. Of course, the demand has increased. Now there's more people.
Mm-hmm. And what can we attribute to this boom?
Well, Catalonia has beautiful mountains and lots of them have amazing landscapes, and the quality of the rock is great, even though I never tried it. But that's what they say. And there's one person that helped this, who we talked about earlier, who's Chris Sharma.
All right, and he has a new HBO reality climbing show with Jason Momoa, is that right?
Yeah, it's like a competition, and I watched it, and most of it happens in Catalonia.
Wow.
Yeah, I was surprised myself as well. Chris Sharma moved to Catalonia in 2007, and he was a great climber. He's one of the most influential climbers in the world, and he started opening these new routes in Catalonia that were the hardest routes in the world, and some of them are the most iconic. And that's how people, when YouTube came about and social media, they started watching videos about Sharma, and they were like, oh, where's this? I'm going to go there. So every time Sharma would open a new route in Catalonia, we'd have a wave of new climbers coming here to try it. So Sharma was the person that put Catalonia on the map.
Okay, that's really cool. But tell me, Oriol, because I am a rock climbing novice. So you said something about opening routes, but what does that actually mean? Like, how do you open a rock route? And what is a rock route?
Well, establishing a new route basically means that someone finds a place and establishes a path by which that route is going to be climbed. So it tells you how to go up the mountain. They grade it, so they say, okay, this is that difficult. It usually goes by numbers. And then other climbers go there and try it and say, okay, you're right, this is this difficult. Or maybe they demote it and say this is not as difficult. So it's like a community-driven process.
And Catalonia has some of the hardest routes.
Yeah, Catalonia and Norway are the two parts of the world that concentrate the hardest routes. Most of them established by Sharma himself.
Sharma actually created a route that's called Perfecto Mundo.
Yeah, that one is one of the hardest and probably the most iconic sport routes in the world. He bolted it, but never climbed it, and he hasn't still managed to climb it yet. And 10 years after he established the route, Alexander Megos topped it, and he was the first to ascend it. Sharma also bolted La Dura Dura, which was the world's first 9B+, and for years it was listed as the world's hardest climb.
And with all of these routes that Catalonia has, a lot of visitors are really keen on trying them out.
Yeah, it has become a sort of mecca of climbing. I remember in the UK, every gym I would go to, there would be a poster, trip to Catalonia, 2,000 quid. So yeah, we have lots of visitors every year.
Okay, and you talked to Quim Hernández, who is the climbing manager of the Catalan Mountain Sports Federation, about the increasing popularity of the routes and then some of the consequences.
While indoor climbing gyms have soared in popularity, the mountains haven't seen a similar boom.
Coneixo molta gent que només escala el Rocó. No han anat mai
A lot of people only climb in gyms and have never been on real rock. Over time, climbing in the gym has become quite different from traditional climbing. Obviously, there has been an increase in people going mountain climbing, there's a lot more demand now, but it's not as significant as the number of people climbing in the gym. When climbing on real mountains, you need to have more knowledge, all the safety maneuvers, etc., unlike in the gym, which is relatively safe.
Perquè llavors seria realment hi ha un problema ambiental I tot.
But even if the locals don't join in, Catalonia has been one of the best climbing destinations in the world for many years now, with thousands of visitors coming over every year just to climb.
Among the 20 best climbing spots in the world, 3 of them are in Catalonia: Margalef, Siurana and Oliana.
The quality of the rock, the beauty of the landscapes and especially the good climate make Catalonia a highly attractive destination.
It boomed in the 2010s when the internet became more popular and climbing guides were everywhere. People would see videos of Chris Sharma climbing here and want to come. And every time a route opened in a new area, there would be a boom there.
Vídeos del Sharma, és que tot això ha anat fent.
2 of the most popular areas, Margalef and Siurana, are just over an hour away from Reus airport and 2 hours from Barcelona.
Now all cars here are rentals. They arrive by plane in Reus, rent a car and go to climb. Before you'd see vans and all that. There still are some, but not as many as before. It's incredible, just incredible.
És una passada, és una passada.
But this tourism has also made some places overcrowded. Margalef, a village of less than 100 inhabitants, is one of the most visited places, and on busy days, more than 1,000 people can be in the village.
També després hem tingut...
Margalef was on the verge of closing. It was overcrowded with cars parked everywhere and it was a real problem. The whole valley is owned by farmers, and so the locals realised that people were spending money in the village. So they made a deal that cars and caravans would not park in the entire valley of Margalef, and they created a well-designed camping area that is cheap. They pay a small price for water and showers, and it's close to the village.
Per poder tenir l'aigua I dutxar-te I ja està, que està al costat del poble.
Another area that has experienced overcrowding is Montserrat, which even banned opening new routes for 2 years.
Aquí a Catalunya prou bé. De fet, som modèlics.
In Catalonia, we are exemplary in the regulation of areas designated for climbing. In Montserrat, there is now a ban on climbing certain routes where nesting takes place. Everybody, the climbers and the Montserrat Nature Park Management, agreed on this, and in the end it only affects 1% of the routes.
A l'1% de totes les vies de Montserrat, que hi ha més de 2.000 vies.
Thanks to Quim Hernández for speaking with us. From Quim, I understand that despite the increase in popularity, climbers for the most part are actually pretty respectful of their surroundings. But what are some of the problem areas that climbers should be aware of when they go out into the mountains?
Although most of the climbers are super respectful with the environment, there have been some problems in Montserrat, for example.
Okay, Montserrat, which is just outside of Barcelona.
Yeah, exactly. And probably that's why as well, because it's easier to get there. And there's already nearly 6,000 routes open there.
Wow, that's a lot.
It is. And the mountain is a protected area, but still they allow climbing. But if you want to open a new route, you need to register. 90% of them are accepted and you can create it. But there's been some illegal routes created in the last few months. Basically, people just go in with a drill in the mountain and bolting a route, which is illegal.
Okay, so I can imagine that going up into the mountains and drilling, that can create erosion. But there's also another problem, which is birds, right?
Yeah, Kim talked about it earlier, and there are some routes that cannot be used while there's nesting. Now, climbing can affect bird nesting in several ways. It disturbs birds, causing stress and potentially leaving them to abandon their nests or eggs. It also can cause damage to the nest, habitat destruction. Overall, climbing activities near nesting sites can disrupt breeding behaviors and damage the nests. And that's why during nesting times, these routes are not allowed to be climbed.
All right, well, something to be aware of before you go climbing. And for me as a total newbie, where would you recommend that I go climbing for the very first time, Oriol?
Well, I'd say Montserrat, precisely, because it's a very beginner-friendly place and it's great to get started. Always be mindful about the nature and don't bold illegal routes.
Yes, that's great advice. Maybe, Oriol, you will come with me and then we can try rock climbing for the very first time.
Please, let's go.
That sounds great. But before we pack our climbing shoes and go on this new adventure, it's time for the Catalan phrase of the week. And what is it this time, Oriol?
So we have fer una muntanya d'un gra de sorra.
And what does that mean, Oriol?
Literally, make a mountain out of a molehill.
Okay, and that translates into when you blow something out of proportion, right?
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't have anything to do with climbing, but it had the mountain word in it, and we liked it.
I mean, maybe some of the climbers, they said that climbing, it made them focus more, right? It made them center themselves. So maybe climbing will prevent them from blowing things out of proportion.
Maybe.
Well, that's all we have time for today. Thanks for listening, and please do subscribe to Filling the Sink wherever you get your podcast if you haven't already. Thanks to the climbers, and thanks to Quim Hernández for speaking with us, and thanks to you, Oriol.
Cheers, Lea.
And we'll be back again next Saturday with another episode of Filling the Sink about Barcelona Fashion Week. On behalf of the team here at Catalan News, I'm Lea Beliaeva, wishing you a great weekend. Fins aviat, adeu.